Okay, guys. So what I've decided to do, due to the audio that wasn't present during the live session, so I've just decided to like record this part that was mute when we were doing the live session, so that you guys can just really understand what I was explaining. Yep. So on this part, we are in the process of creating a Google Chrome, right? So I was showing that this is the interface that we're trying to design. That's the you know simple, unique UI for the Google website, right? So we are creating a clone of the Google site. So there on the site, as you can see, we have the logo there in the middle. We have the input as well. Then on the top right corner there, you have those two links and the image, right? So this is what we are actually like just building throughout these live sessions. Yeah. So I'm sure by the time you're watching this, this will be a recorded session. Yeah, but we did go to the live session. Yeah. So like I said, this part was mute during the live session, but you still get to understand what I was explaining. Yeah. Okay. So I was just explaining in terms of, yeah. Okay. So I'm sure I delayed a bit here. Yeah, but if you see that there's no audio on this part, you can just kind of like speed it up or keep it. Yeah, but otherwise, um, okay. Okay, I think I remember what I was explaining. So I was explaining to say, when it comes to like just development and everything, um, we use different tools. Okay, so when it comes to just writing our code, we use VS Code. Then for the browser, we use Chrome, right? So that's what I'm using, but you can choose whichever tools that you want. So VS Code, like any other text editor, we just use it, write code, debug. It does a lot of things. It's been built specifically for development, right? But then if you have, let's say you're using Windows, Windows does come with its own like default um, text editor. So there's like Notepad. So there you can see that's Notepad. So with Notepad, you can actually write code in there, right? So you can write code. For example, when you write lesson, geometry mark, block type, HTML, that is code, right? So remember in the last session, we did write some code and I explained what these are. But basically, doc type HTML declares the element as an HTML element, right? Then you have those HTML elements as well. So those HTML elements declare the whole document, right? We enclose now all that content inside the HTML tag so that the browser is able to interpret, right, the code that we've written properly and just be able to display what's needed, right? What's needed in terms of the document. Like it's supposed to read the whole document and just be able to interpret it and show it in a format that's, you know, humanly understandable and readable. Yeah. So like when you go to a website, when you visit a website, you don't there and then just see the code like the doc type HTML and all that, but you just get to see the content, right? So this code is actually like you can only see it when you click like maybe view page source or you inspect the page. That's when you get to see that content, right? So mainly that's like kind of the fundamental structure for HTML. So you have the HTML there, you have the head and the body. So we mentioned the head, okay? With the head tag, that's where like content that describes the web page or adds more information to the website goes. But then with the body, what the body does is that it contains our content that the user sees on our web page. Okay? Yeah. So for example, we search a website like that, right? Okay. Think here, yeah. So there, I think I was just showing the browser. So that's the browser. So the browser I'm using is Chrome. Okay. So I just had to close the notepad. It contained a file that I had opened and had a lot of content in data. So it was kind of slowing down the notepad. So I had to like close it, maybe shut it down, like end task with the task manager. Yeah. So we had to close this. Yeah. Yeah. Right. So that's the browser, that's Chrome, but you can use your whichever browser of your choice that you want. Okay. Um, and then with the text editor that we are using VS Code, and that's VS Code. Okay. That's VS Code. Right. That's VS Code. And with VS Code, again, you can customize it in any, you know, um, theme that you want, depending on your task and everything. And the way we write code, that's how we write code, and that's the structure for our HTML. Okay? So inside the head tag, that's where we have those tags. We have the CSS tag there, right? And when you remove those things, what VS Code does is that it highlights for us like different colors, and we're able to see the change in the color whenever there's a mistake or something like that, which is helpful when you're developing maybe a site for your work, because you get to see um, where the mistake is and just correct it, debug, and everything is easier, right? Then in the body there, that's where we have the main and the footer, right? So we can just open the website like that with the plugin that we have, which is the lifesaver, right? So when you open, it begins like it's starting at the bottom there. It's starting, right? You can easily see there saying starting. Then when it starts, you'll be able to see the port number there. So if you say port, then it give us a number because we're trying to run the project locally on our server, right? We are creating a local server. So that's the website that has opened. Then you can see the content that we've made so far compared to the Google. So that's what we're trying to do. Right? Then this is our website. So those two links and the image, right? Then in the middle there, we don't have anything, and that's what we're trying to make, right? That's what we're trying to create, okay? Because everything that goes in the body, okay, whatever content we are seeing there, right? That input, the logo and everything goes in the body, okay? So with VS Code, let's say for those that don't have it, you can just Google VS Code there, and you know the first link that comes up, that will be the official website for VS Code, and you can just download it depending on the platform you're using. If you're using a Mac OS, you can just download the one for Mac OS. If you're using Windows like I am, you can download the one for Windows. If you're using Ubuntu or Linux, whichever Linux platform, you can do the same. Then the other one is just the browser that you need. Okay, so there are different browsers that that you need. So there is like Safari, there's like Firefox, there's Pyramid. So you can look at like just different browsers of your choice that you want, right? But you have to take into consideration that when we are developing these different platforms, there's what we call responsive design, right? And adaptability, right? So when we are designing for Chrome, we have to remember that it's not everyone that's using Chrome. Right? So when we design our website or our web application, we want people with different browsers to be able to access our site. So you need to make sure that you're testing your site before you deploy it on different platforms. Okay? Then now when it comes to Chrome, you can customize it. There are those different themes that you can choose from. So for example, you can choose the GitHub dark and everything, right? The one that I'm using is called Monochrome. Yeah, Morgan, sorry, not Monochrome, but Morgan. The code, that's the one that I'm using. But I've got like different ones. I usually change depending on, sometimes you just like you've used a certain theme for a long time, and yeah, you just want to change, like just put up something new. So you can choose this one if you want, or you can pick other ones. This one is like the GitHub Jack thing, but the one that I'm using is that this is Morgan.com. Okay, so that's VS Code. Okay, you can download whichever one you want. Then for the browser, you can choose whichever one. But remember that whenever it comes to testing your site, deploying it, make sure that you test it on different platforms and what it's doing. Okay, yeah. So that's the thing. All right. So that's VS Code, and our website is there. So we'll now be able to just build our site now in terms of the content, right? In terms of the content. So when you go inside the HTML file, that is basically the structure we're talking about, right? So on top there you have the doc type, then you have the head and the body there, right? This is the structure that you will find on any website. This is like the fundamental structure, like a building block for any website that you're going to find out there, right? So you just need to understand what these tags are and how they are used. Okay? Then with our CSS, remember we talked about using CSS in our page. So the CSS is just basically used for styling our website. Can be aligning items, just changing colors and different things around how we can style our page. We use CSS for that, right? But for the structure of the site, like we've been mentioning, we use HTML, right? So there you do have the content inside the HTML tag, right, which covers everything, which is the head and the body of the site. Okay? And if you notice inside the head there, right? Inside the head tag, you are going to find that you have meta tag. But inside the HTML tag, you also have a body tag which contains items or content that the user gets to see on our page. All right. Okay. Now, inside the head tag, you see that we have got different meta tags, right? And when it comes to tags in HTML, there are what we call open tags and closing tag. Okay, but with other tags like the image tag, you notice they don't have a closing tag, right? That's the image tag there. It only has a forward slash at the end there, right? So that forward slash is symbolizes it gets to let us know that this is a closing tag. Okay, the open tag doesn't have a forward. So for example, there you have a listed item, right? Which has an open and a closing tag. The head has an open and a closing tag. But when you check out those meta tags, they don't have closing tags, right? But with the title tag, it does have a closing tag. When you look at the link tag, which is a tag that we use connect to uh, to our CSS for us to start our page, it doesn't have a closing. Okay? Yeah. So with the title, if they are on the page, on the title, they're on top on the tab, the content that you're able to see there is from the what's this, from the title tag there, right? We have web development, that's why you're able to see that. So when you're designing websites, you need to understand something about search engine optimization, right? And we'll get to talk about that in later videos. Okay. Now, when it comes to the meta tags, I've got different types of meta tags, and this one, which is the viewport, helps us create responsive websites. It's a must that you have that meta tag in your head, right? Then the other one, meta tag that we can look at, has a name of description, right? There's a name of description. There's a name of description. So the description here just describes the website or the web page to the user, right? When someone goes on like Google or any other search engine and they are just searching for content and our website comes up. Okay? What the user is going to see, the first thing is obviously the link of the website. Okay, the link of the website. Okay, so you've seen there when we search for browsers, you've got a title there, right? And the supporting paragraph there, that's the content that we're able to see, right? That's the description of the page. Okay? So when you go back to like VS Code, okay, um, let's see when you go back to VS Code, okay, that tag there, right, explains now what the user will be able to see on the supporting paragraph, right? So if we say this is a Google Chrome um, website, right? So this text that we've written here is the one that gets to be shown, but you can't see it in the body. Remember what we said, right? Content that you put in the head is not what the user sees on the page, but what you can do is you can like click on the page, then view page source or inspect, right? So what we're going to do is just view the page source so that we are able to just see the code, right? So that's the code for our website. Then when you go on top there, you'll be able to see that tag, right? Which is the description, and you're able to see the content of the description, which is this is the Google Form web. Okay? Now, the other thing that you can do, right? So when I'm building like website, what I do is I consistently um, just try to look at how my search engine optimization is looking like, right? Just to put certain things in place. So I use that plugin called Meta SEO for search engine optimization, right? Then when you check on top there, you'll be able to see that tag or description, right? And it has got that content there, right? But then on top there on canonical, right, you're able to see that warning. So it means we haven't added that. Now, canonical rings, we talk about them obviously when we start looking at setting optimization in depth. But for now, we are focusing on this description tag, right? And you're able to see that even for the head title, it's there, right? Okay. So I think we can now look at the content, right? So that's the tag. Those are the two tags, right? We have the description and the title. But inside the body, whatever content you are seeing on the page, right, is inside the body. So there on the page, we've got the header, right? And we've got two links and an image, which is the one inside the head, right? But then you notice that we've got the main and the footer, right? We've got the main and the footer, which are not visible on the page. But then when you go to the header there, you notice we've got an ordered list, right? Tag. Now, in HTML, there is a concept that we call parent to child relationship, right? So with the header, since it has got tags inside it, those tags that are inside are called the children of the header. The header is the parent, right? And that parent has got one child, which is the unlisted sorry, an ordered list, right? Then the unordered list has got also its own children, which are the listed item, right? In the listed item as well, it has got its own child, which is the image tag, right? So that's how the structure in HTML goes about. So that's how it looks like. Okay, so we've got that. Even inside the listed item, you'll be able to see that we've got those anchor tags there as the children for the listed item, right? So when it comes to the header there, we can't see the images. So those are the items, right? Inside the header, the two links and an image. Okay? So what we want to do now is to just put up content inside the main. Okay? Inside the main. We want to add the content inside the main, like what the user sees, like what's on the search engine there, the input. Okay? So with the footer, whatever content that goes in the footer is what goes at the bottom of our web. Okay? But with the main, that's where we're going to put content that the user will now be able to see, like the main content of our page, right? So when you go to like Google, so that's the one that we have, right, on top there, right? That's the header. But you're able to see its content, right? Which is the another list, images and the two links that we have there, which is for Gmail and the But then because we want to look at the main, right? The main tag. We want to put now content inside the main. Okay. Yeah, I think on this part I was explaining the same thing. Yeah. So just I think one thing I can talk about here again is the tags that we are using. Those are called semantic tags. Okay? They are called semantic tags because they give more description to the tag itself. Right? Um, so we've got the header there. So the header is a selector. Right? So when it comes to CSS, I think I'll explain later on in the video. I think there's a part where I explain. Yeah, but basically, the header, the footer, the main, those are called semantic HTML elements because they properly describe the tag itself. So when we talk about the header, it describes content that goes on top of the page, right? Then when it comes to CSS now, you notice that we've got, for example, the header there, we've got those open brackets, and inside we've got like, for example, display and flex. So display is called a property, flex is called a value. Okay, so with CSS, we use a syntax of that nature, where you have a selector, you open the bracket there, and inside you have a property and value, then you close the bracket, right? So the word syntax, the way I like to put it is, a syntax is more like a sentence, right? So a sentence, we use it to express a thought, right? So with programming, you notice that different languages have got different syntaxes, right? So with CSS is that it has its own syntax that we use. Same thing as same thing as the HTML, right? They've got different syntaxes that they use. So that's the syntax for our CSS. Okay. So let me show you guys. So there's a selector, right? So there's a selector. I think here this is what I was trying to explain. Okay. Yeah. So there we have the selector as well. Then you have those brackets, so curly brackets. Then inside you've got what we call a property, right? A property, then you put a full colon, then you say value, then you end it with a semicolon. Right? Then you have to close it with a semicolon. Right? So I was commenting there to just make sure that we don't get an error. Right? So with different languages, if you make a comment, that code that is commented won't run. Right? It won't run. So in this case, um, it won't give us any error because the statement that is written there is commented. Yeah. So with the selectors, these like main, footer, listed items, anchor tag, image tags, these are called selectors. These are HTML selectors, right? When you choose the actual name without a less than or greater than symbol, just the name of the tag itself, right? If it's an order listed item, you just put U here, right? But then you also have what we call a class, and that's how you call a class in CSS. You put a full stop here in front, then the name of the class itself, right? So in CSS, you can use what we call classes. You can also use ID. But with an ID, what you put there is a hashtag whenever you're calling it in CSS, right? But then there you can add also like an ID. Now, the difference between an ID and the class is that with an ID it's unique, right? You can only apply it to one HTML element tag. But with a class, you can have the same class on different HTML elements. But with an ID, you can't have, for example, their ID top. You can't have it on the other sentence like ID top, right? Because ID is unique. So, but then you can have a class like that. So a class top, even that one class top, right? But that's an error there because we are using two classes, so we are not supposed to do that. But what you can do if you want to have multiple classes on one HTML element is that you can remove that. Then inside there, you just separate the classes by space, right? Like that. So you can actually use the same class top on different methods. But with IDs, IDs are unique. Okay? And the way you call an ID, remember, use it at the class uses footer. Okay? Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. I think I was muted the whole time. I didn't notice that. I was actually muted like the whole time. Yeah, okay. Let me just correct that mistake. Okay. Okay. So, what I was saying basically is that let me even be checking the comments so that I get what you guys are saying. Mm, okay, yeah. So let me just be quick on that one. The tools that we are using is VS Code, and we are using a browser called Chrome. Okay, that's what we are using. Right, that's what we are using. So now, when it comes to writing our code, we are basically using VS Code, which is this one. Okay, then when it comes to the browser, we are using Chrome, which is this browser. Okay, so now in the code, okay, so in the code which is here, okay, in the code which is here, what I was explaining is that we've got the syntax that we call semantic HTML elements, which gives more description to the website. Okay, then we've got the main, and we also have the footer. So with the main is the tag that helps us put content that goes in the main body, right? The main content of our page. But with the header, it's the content that goes on top of the website. Then with the footer, this is content that goes at the bottom of our website. Okay, so that's what I meant by that. Okay, right. So let's save that way. Okay, so now I was trying to explain to say when it comes to CSS, okay, CSS helps us style our website. It helps us style our website. That's the main functionality of us using CSS. So the styling comes in different forms, okay? But what you have to focus on for now for you to understand how CSS works is its syntax, okay? And I was saying, the word syntax rather, okay, is the same as a sentence when it comes to speaking a language, right? So with a sentence, it's kind of a way that we use to express our thought, right? So with CSS, it's the same thing. So you need to understand how to properly construct a sentence for you to be understood, right? When you are speaking a language. So it's the same thing rather with CSS. Okay? So we have what we call a selector and a property and value. Okay? So you have got a selector, an open bracket, a property, full colon, value, and a closing what's this bracket, right? So these things that you're seeing in the beginning here, these are just comments. Okay, these are just comments so that the code doesn't bring up errors. Okay, so let me just comment that, but this is the proper syntax. Okay, this is the proper syntax for our CSS. Okay, let me comment that. So now what is a selector? So a selector, when you go to the HTML, are these elements, okay, the names that we are using for our CSS, a header, main, and the footer. Okay, so these are what? These are the selectors that we are talking about. But apart from just using these, we've got what we call a class and an ID. Okay, so with a class, you have got names like nav, top. These are just names that we've given to our classes. Okay, so for you to access an HTML element, you need to add a class or an ID. Now, what's the difference? With an ID, it's so unique, it can only apply to one element, right? But with a class, you can use the same name that is used here. You can copy this and affect the main body like that. So you can apply the same style to different HTML elements when you are using a class. But when it comes to an ID, if here we create an ID of, let's say I call this ID middle, right? Middle. You can't have the same ID on a different element like that. You can't have an ID on a different element, right? Like that. You can't have that. Okay? Two different HTML elements having the same ID, you can't have that. So it's unique. Now, how do you call these IDs and classes? Okay? So when you go to your CSS, remember we are talking about a selector, right? So the selector, in that case, if it's a class, you say full stop, then the name of the class. So in our case, the name was middle, right? Then you can now open your curly brackets like that and put a property and value, right? So this is a selector. If it's an ID, you use a hash like that. Then you put your property and value. Now, what are these property and value? Okay. So in CSS, we've got different properties and values. Okay. I'll give you an example of a vehicle. Okay. So there are many different cars out there, but they've got different properties and values. Right? Like one common property of any vehicle is that it has got color, right? You can find a black car, you can find a blue car, you can find a purple car, right? You have cars of different colors, right? So now the word color is a property, but the blue in that case is the value of the color, okay? Is the value of the color. So it's the same thing with CSS. You've got different, colors, or let me say different properties that have got different values. Okay, so one property that we know and we've talked about it is color, right? Like that. And this color comes with different properties, values, right? So for example, you can have blue there as a color, right? You can have pink there as a color, right? You can have black as a color, like that. Okay. Apart from color being a property, there are many different properties. For example, if you want to change the size of the font, right? Font size, right? That's a property. And you can put, for example, 25 pixels because it's size. Pixels, it's px, right? So pixels, those are the units we use for the font. And there are different ones which we will dive into later on. So this is the syntax rather for CSS. Okay. So now let's just make some few changes. Okay, on our website. Let's make some progress on our website. Okay, alright, let's make some changes. So remember, what we are trying to build is Google, right? Let me just go back to the website. This is the Google website. That's what we're trying to build, okay? But our website is like this right now. It's looking like this. I don't know if you can see this content. Yeah, we have just zoomed in a bit. This is the content that we have on our page so far, but we want to create something like this, right? Okay, so one thing you'll notice is that when you bring your cursor on those links, it's like there's like a line underneath, like an underline, right? That appears there. So we can change that using CSS, right? But for now, I want us to work on something. We can actually change the type of font we are using. Okay? So there is a website I like using. It's called fonts.google.com. So they are like Google fonts that you can use when you are building your website. Okay? And it's very easy for you to change the font of your page. Okay? So we change the font in CSS. So we're going to go in our CSS on top there, then we leave a space like that. Okay? I want you to follow me closely. Okay? So let's go to our font. So these are the different fonts that you can use. Okay, so I'm just going to use like a simple one. Okay, let me go on top. Okay, we just use the bottom, right? Just use this one. Okay. So what you can now do is you look at the fonts that you want. Even the weight of the font, we've got them here, right? This is light, this is light, 300 italic, so you can choose whichever one you want. So I'm going to pick this one, and which other one? Choose these ones, and maybe this one. Okay. So when you're done picking, you notice that they are listed here. You have got light 300, rather, regular 400, and medium for 500. Right. So what you do is this. You've got two options. You've got the link and the import, right? So if you want to add to your HTML, you can get the link. If you want to add to your CSS, you get the import, right? So the way we get the import is you copy this, the one inside. You don't copy these tags, okay? I'll explain why. So you don't copy those tags, but you just copy this. Then you go inside your CSS on top there, then you paste it like that, okay? Like that. Then you can save the work, okay? Then now, because we want to affect the whole website, right? This is our HTML. Now remember I said for us to change anything on our page, okay? For us to change anything on our page, what we do is that we need to get the selector. So in our case, the selector is the body, right? So you go to your HTML, then you just say body, okay? For this one, you don't add like a full stop or a hash, because it's like the actual HTML element that we are targeting. It's not a class name ID. Okay, so when you do that, let me even add this on top here. Okay, like that. So body. Okay. Then you now say font family, like that. Then now you can add the font family that you want. So when you go back to that page, okay, you've got this. You've seen here, font family, and this is the value that we are adding, right? If you wanted, you could have just copied everything, right? But we've already typed font family, right? So you could have just copied the whole thing and just pasted it here like that. So before we save the work, I want you to notice the difference. Okay, so this is our current font. Okay, so when we save, okay, we save the work, and when you go on your website, you notice that the font has changed, right? Yeah, I think that's better now, right? So the font has changed. So we have that font. Okay. So the other thing that we want to work on today, in today's session, is this part, right? We want to at least have this logo for Google and just have this, input section, right? So let's work with the image first, which is the logo. Now remember I said that content goes inside the main, because that's the main content of the website, right? So what we're going to do inside there is we're going to create a section, okay? Create a section like that. Then inside this section, that's where we add the image. Okay? That's where we add the image, then we have a source. So our source is the assets folder. Then in the assets folder, we have got the logo there, right? Logo like that. Then we close our tag like that. Okay? So when I save the work and go on our website, okay, we now have that logo there. See, we now have the Google logo. Now, the original one is in the middle, so we have to know how to position it like that in the middle. Okay? So how do we do that? Okay, so what we're going to do is this. Okay? I'm just going to move this image here and create a div. Okay? So a div is another container that you can use. Okay? So I'll give this div a class so that we're able to affect it in our CSS. So I'll call it Google logo, right? Call it Google logo like that. Then inside we have our image like that. Okay, that's better. Okay, so now what we want is to position everything that's here at the center. Okay, at the center here, like the way the Google website is. Okay, so what do you do? So you now have to affect this parent. Okay, so because whatever you do to the parent will affect the children. Because remember, this content that's here is the one that will go in the middle. This is the same content we want to add. Okay, so let's go to our VS Code. I hope you guys can still hear me. Okay. Okay, all right. So we're going to affect our section here, right? This is the parent, and we want to change this, right? So in this section, we're going to create a class. Okay, so this class, what we're going to do is that we'll call it I just say middle content. Okay? Middle content. Okay, or to just come up with a better term, you just say search section. Okay, like that. Search section. then I'll save the word. Okay, so now we want to change this. So if we are to affect this part, we're going to get this class, alright, copy that class, come to our CSS, down here, we're going to say full stop because we're dealing with the class. When we paste that name, then open brackets like that. Okay, so now what are we going to do here? So here what you do is that you use a property called display, because whenever you want to affect the positioning or rather the alignment of your content, you use the property display, which has got different values, right? And the one that we will be using most of the time is flex. Okay? So what flex does is that, okay, before we use it, let me just explain it a bit. Okay, so what flex does is that I don't know if I still have that extension. It was going to be good if I showed you guys how we view everything. Okay, anyways, maybe this, you see, is this the one? Okay, yeah, I think we can use this extension. Okay, so if I bring my cursor on this item, okay, on this item and I click there, okay, you can even see the class that we use. Okay, it's what? Google logo, right? Then down here it shows you the properties. Okay, shows you the font family we use, the size, the height, and all that, right? The colors, the background, and everything. But I'm interested in this rectangle that you are seeing. Okay, when you go to the image and click it, you see that something has changed, right? The rectangle no longer extends to the right side, but it's just there, right? It's just there, surrounding that image that we have, right? So in HTML, there's what we call inline and block elements. So with block elements, they're occupying the whole space. But inline, for example, an image is an inline element. It only occupies the space that it needs. It doesn't take up the whole space. That's why you've been able to see that with this, okay, with this image, it's only taking up this space. But when you look at the div tag, which holds our Google logo, right, it's taking up the whole space. So now when we apply flex to this item, it changes every block element from occupying this whole space to a what? To an inline element. So that items can now sit next to each other like that. Okay? Right. So let's apply that and see what happens. So I'll say display what? Flex. Right? So I'll do that. Then, so right now what we've done, you won't notice that much change, right? You haven't noticed any changes, right? It's because the image is already an inline element, right? Now what you do is you will now add another property called justify content, then you say middle, right? Middle. So justify content now helps us align our content in the middle in terms of the horizontal line, right? So on the horizontal line, like this line, right, it helps align this image here in the middle. Okay, that's what that helps us with. So if you check the website, you now see that our image has come in the middle, right? Why? Because we've used the justify content, which helps us align, okay, our content in the middle in the horizontal line. Now on the vertical line, we want it to be in the middle, like there, right here, because that's where the image is, right? So for us to do that, we've got another item or property called align items. Okay? So these two items are important, these two properties. We've got the justify content and the align item. Okay? So the justify content aligns it horizontally, right? Then just comment that. So aligns items horizontally. That's the correct spelling. Yeah. So okay, let me copy this from here because we don't want to cancel that code. Put it there. Okay, like that. Then with this one, let me copy this. Okay. So I'm just putting this comment so that you know. So this one aligns it vertically. Okay, like that. So even this one, we want it to be at the center. Okay. Now, the thing about these comments now is that, okay, let me just bring back this side and this side. Okay, like that. Now, the thing about this one, okay, this last one, okay, we've saved the work, but you won't see it in the middle here. Why isn't it working? It's because what the page is doing is that it's actually aligning it at the middle, but because of the content, limited content that we have, right, our content can only occupy this much space here, from this point to somewhere this point, right? So we have to specify the distance to say we are looking at it from the screen size that we are working with. We want this to be at the center of the screen size. So what we do is that we go to this one and apply height, right? So the height that we apply is 100% view height, right? So whichever device you are looking at this website from, it will always take up the screen size of the device you are using. If you are using a desktop like I am, what will happen is that this element will be in the middle here. If you are using a mobile phone, it will still be in the middle of that mobile phone, right? So when you save the web, okay, like that, when you go on the website, you now notice it's where in the middle, right? So you can even scroll down there like that, right? Then if you don't want it to be able to be scrollable like that, what you can do is just reduce the height, right? You can just keep it up to like 90 there, so that you don't get to scroll down, right? Like that. It's now in the middle. See that? So we've achieved that. So this image is in the middle. So the reason why you're seeing it a bit on top there is because we now have everything like that. So the more we add these other elements, it will now be able to be in the middle, just position itself in the middle, right? So the next item that we want is an input, when we can call it there, right? Okay, so this is the input that we want to add. So what we do is we go to our HTML, okay, then we add an input, right? So this is the so this is the image that we are from working on. Then now we'll create another different div. We give it a class. Then we say search input, right? Search input. Now, how do you create an input, right? So there's a tag for that. So just for input like that, okay? So this is the tag that you use for input. It has got an attribute of type, which is text, because that's what people will be putting in there. If we had maybe an input for email, you just put email like that, okay? But for that one, it's text, so leave it as text. Then we have another one called placeholder. So the placeholder just shows the user in terms of what they're supposed to enter in the search, right? But when you look at the Google website, right, they don't have anything in there. So we'll leave it blank for now. So leave it blank, right? But to just show you what that is, you can just say enter your search, right? Enter your search like that. Okay? Yeah. Enter your search. Then you can even give it a name, right? So the name can just search, call it search, right? That's the name. Right. Okay. So let's save the work. Okay. And go on the website. Okay. Let me see. Okay, we didn't save the work. Let's save the work and check it on our website. Okay, so we now have that search, right? Now, something funny has happened. This one is at the bottom, right? But ours is on the right side, right? Now, the reason is because remember we declared our section as flex, right? The display is flex, and I mentioned that it flex converts every HTML element into an inline, right? So it positions things like on the sides like that. So what we need to change here is the direction, right? So right now it's positioning itself as a row, right? We want it to be horizontal, like a column like that, right? So what you do here, you say flex direction like that, then you say column, right? Column like that, you save the word. So when you go on the website, you now see it's a column, right? It's a column. Yeah. Okay. Alright. So it's a column right now. So now what we need to do, remember I said with Google, right? You can see here there's no text, but ours has text. So the reason I put text here is because I wanted you guys to be able to just see what goes inside there when we put the placeholder, right? So we need to style this now to something that looks like this, right? So we have got like a borderline, you know, the corners are kind of curved, right? and we've got this shadow whenever we bring our cursor, right? Something like that. So what we do is we go to our CSS, right? And we go to HTML. So now our HTML has got this class that we want to target, right? This is the parent, which is the search input, then we've got the input, which is the child. So for us to get to the child, we have to pass through the parent, right? Okay, so we get that, we go to our CSS, alright, like that. Then this time we're adding the input because we want to affect the child directly, right? So one of the first things that we do is create space inside, right? So if you check here with the Google website, right? The input is a bit longer, right, compared to the one that we have, right? The width is bigger compared to the one that we have. So we have to increase either the width or the space inside, right? So how do we do that? Let's check how we can do that, right? So you can say width, for example, right? You can just say width 500 pixels, right? We are not being accurate in terms of the size. So the size doesn't matter. If you want to be exact, what you can do is you can just inspect the width of the Google input and just be able to use the same one, right? But for now, this will do. So we have 500 pixels there, right? So in terms of the width, I think we are okay, right? Now, it's the spacing inside. So there is a lot of space inside as compared to ours, right? So the space inside, you can use what we call, it's a property called padding, right? So padding creates space inside, okay? Inside the HTML element that you are working on, right? So there what we can do is the space which is padding, we just put, so for example, top, we just say 10 pixels, then on the side we say 20 pixels like that, and we save the work, and we check, there it is, right? We're almost there. But I think we can just increase a bit of padding on top. Maybe we can just keep both 20, like that, okay? So when you check now, right? Yeah, something like this, okay? You can have something like that, right? So what do we do next? Remember, the sides are a bit like curved, right? So that's the border radius now. That's what we have to look at, right? So when we go on our page there, we say border radius, okay? So border radius, let's say we say 50%, right? 50%, and just check it out. Okay, that's not good. That's not good. Let's not use percentages, right? So let's just say 20 pixels, okay? 20 pixels, and just check it out. Okay, almost there. Maybe let's try 30. Okay, let's try 30 there. Okay. Yeah, I think 30 is okay. 30 is okay. And the padding inside, I think it's a bit bigger. So the padding you can just say maybe 15, right? 15. So yeah, I think that's okay, right? That's okay. So now we can remove the placeholder for now because we understood what that does, right? Since we are creating a clone for Google. So yeah. So leave it like that. So it's empty like that, like Google, right? Then the other thing is this borderline is a bit darker compared to this one. This one has a gray borderline, right? So that's what you can change as well. You go to our CSS, okay? So say border like that, right? Then we put now the width of the border. How thick do we want it? We just say 1 pixel for now. Then we want it to be solid. That's like a star, right? So the border can be dotted, it can be solid, right? There are those like different styles that you can look at. So say solid, then you say gray for the color, right? Now, there's something nice about VS Code, right? It gives you this option where when you bring your cursor in the color, you can now pick whichever color you want, like that, right? So ours is gray, but what I want is, we don't want the gray to show that much, so we reduce its opacity like that, okay? Then you save our work. Let's now check it out, okay? Like that. So getting almost closer to the one for Google. So we can just reduce the padding again a bit. Okay, let's check it out. Yeah, something like that. Now, one thing you notice is when we bring our cursor here, right, or when we click there, we have this shadow, right? But it doesn't like bring that black line on the border, right? because ours brings that dark line, so we don't want the dark line. Right? So what we're going to do is this: when we go to our page, there we're going to create a different separate input, right? So we say when it's focused, right? When it's on focus, okay? This is the same input, but we are trying to change how it's supposed to look like when it's on focus. So when it's on focus, our outline, we don't want it to be there. So we say none, right? So when you go on the page and you now click there, it will no longer come, right? But what we want the style to do is that when we bring our cursor there, or when it's on focus, it's supposed to bring that shadow, box shadow, right? That box shadow, right? Okay, so we can actually do that. Right. So here, right, when it's on focus, okay, or when, okay, so you separate now. When you want to add multiple styles to different selectors, you can separate them by a comma, right? So we separate by a comma, then we say search, then we say input, okay, then we say hover, right? This one. So I will put in hover because we want when it's on focus and when we bring the cursor there, which is hover, we want this effect, right? This effect that Google has. Okay. Right. So let's put it down there, right? So that's the box shadow. Box shadow like that. Okay. Box shadow. Okay. So we can put, so for example, let's try putting different values. 0 pixel, 4 pixel, color, not color, should it be say gray, right? Then just the padding. Sorry, opacity. So reduce like that. Let's check it out and just see if it's happening. Okay. Okay, so you've seen that effect. It's now showing, right? So we can even reduce it more because with the Google one, the opacity is in that. Okay. So let's reduce the opacity again. Okay. So like that. Okay, so at least we've achieved that. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be exactly the same, but I'm sure we're able to get the concept. Okay. Alright, I think looking at time, these sessions are only meant to last for an hour, right? So this is now 1912. Okay, so I think this is where we end for today's session. We'll meet again, I think, next week, Tuesday, same time, which is 18 hours. So if you want other people to just, join us for these live sessions, share the link with them, share the live feed. Even when the session is done, you can just share the recorded session because it will be there on Facebook and YouTube as well. Okay, so these live sessions are both on Facebook and YouTube. Okay, yeah. So that's the thing. Okay, so I think for now we are done. So I'll join you guys, or you join me next week Tuesday. So thanks guys for joining in. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out. I think later on I'll be able to just share the code so that you guys can just be going through it, look at it, practice, play around with it, just change things, customize it and all that, because that's how you learn. So you don't just learn by watching me write this stuff. So if it's possible, whenever you are watching these live sessions, just have a computer beside you and just follow along. As I'm writing code, you're also writing, and all those things. Ask questions in the comment sections. If you have questions, always do just ask in the comment sections so I get to answer those questions as we are doing this. Okay? Yeah. And always give feedback, guys. Give feedback if there's something that you need, if there's something that you need to talk about, just let me know. Okay, just let me know if you have anything. Okay, yeah. Otherwise, I think maybe to just talk about maybe do a recap. So what we've looked at today, is basically we've looked at semantic HTML elements. We've looked at the syntax for CSS. We've looked at properties and values. So we looked at a number of properties and values, by the way. The ones that I would want you to take from this session is the display. Okay, display. This is like a very big aspect in terms of, if just aligning and just putting things in place on your website, right? This is the guy, display, right? The display property. So it has another value called grid, okay? If you want to use grid, but in these live sessions I mostly use flex. Yeah, but it depends on your, you know functionality and implementation, how you just want things to be aligned, right? So both can achieve the same thing. Okay, so I just use flex, but you can also use grid, which comes with its own supporting like other properties and values. Okay, and these tags, okay, these properties rather, justify content, align items, look at these guys on your spare time, just Google them, go to W3 schools, look around them, and just check how they affect our HTML elements, right? Yeah, and you can look at these basic tags as well, like padding, border radius, border, yeah, color, text, all those things. They are very important, and just font size, because fonts, I'm sure it's a huge aspect of CSS or HTML, because your website will obviously be having text, if not images, right? There's a lot of text, so you want to know how to just change fonts, their size, their weight, and things like that. Right? Yeah, so I think that's it for me. Thanks, guys, once again for just tuning in and joining in. And like I said, if you have questions, feel free to just hit my inbox. And during the sessions, if you have questions in terms of what we are doing, if you don't understand anything, if you are lost somewhere, always feel free to just comment. If you want us to start from scratch, like there's something or maybe some foundation that you need, we can always organize that and just be able to just go through it so that you guys understand this stuff, and at the end of the day be able to just build the skill. That's the goal, right? We don't want to just rush and be building stuff but then you don't understand them. Yeah, so it's all about building the skill, understanding these fundamentals, and everything as well, right? Right, so that's it for me. See you guys next week. All right, have a great one.